Legs are the base to your physique. I don't care how much upper body muscle you have, if you have small legs, you just look silly. I'm about a month and a half into my fat loss diet. I'm down 6 pounds, and the number one thing I complimented on are either my back or my legs. I made the crucial mistake of skipping legs my first year in the gym. I thought sprinting and running would be sufficient enough to train them. Boy, was I wrong. After getting flamed on my legs on the daily, I went insano style on them, and now they're my strongest attribute. Building big legs is actually pretty straightforward and easy. People often make excuses for themselves, saying their legs are hard to grow because of their genetics. And while that does play a factor, I don't think it's a big one. At least for most people. Legs aren't hard to grow necessarily, they just take a very long time because they're literally half your body. On top of that, the quads, glutes, hamstrings, and calves are some of the biggest muscles in your body. It's gonna take a while to fill out. Unless you're a little goblin like me, I'm only 5'7". I have 2 leg days a week. If your main goal is strength or hypertrophy, which means muscle growth, then I think that's also ideal. I start my leg days off with a warm-up. I'm just getting the blood flowing here. I'm working on some basic footwork for fighting. You can also use a bike or treadmill for 5 minutes, just get the blood flowing. Afterwards, I get in some dynamic stretching, which is just movement-based stretching. Your warm-up shouldn't be more than 10 minutes. Mine is a little longer because I add in some static stretching for my hips, but I don't actually recommend this unless you have pain or issues in a particular area like I do. I messed up something in my abductor a while ago, which is the outer part of your hip. I start off my actual workout with a squat, which I believe to be one of the fundamental movements of building your legs. Honestly, today I didn't put up much weight, my knee and hip are bothering me a little bit, so I took it a little easier. I love barbell squats, and that's why I'm always pushing it further, you know? Even though I'm hurt, I will still do what I can. But you don't need to squat free weight with a barbell necessarily. Just choose a squat-like movement you like to do, something that you can push very hard and get a deep stretch with. Maybe something like a hack squat or even a leg press if that's what you enjoy most and will stick to. The squat for me is my highest volume exercise. I do 4 sets. I tend to only do 2 sets per exercise, and this isn't because I necessarily believe low volume is better for muscle growth and strength. In most cases, it's actually worse for muscle growth and strength. The only time I'd argue it's better is if you enjoy it more, and that's because you will adhere to it in the long term. The most optimal way of training is the training you're gonna stick to. And the second reason I prefer low volume is because I don't want to spend all day in the gym. I have things to do, I have videos to edit, and a job to work. But anyways, the squat is a fantastic movement, but I wouldn't recommend it as your only quad movement. Your quadricep is 4 muscles, and squats only train 3 of them. Your vastus medialis crosses the hip joint, and it isn't properly stretched or trained through a squatting motion. I'll give my 2 favorite exercises for the entire quad later in the video. After my squats, I do Romanian deadlifts for hamstrings and glutes. Focus on lowering the bar by driving your hips back. I love RDLs, but if you're doing one hamstring movement, then I don't recommend it. RDLs only train 75% of your hamstrings. The hamstrings are similar to the quads, also having 4 muscles. One of those is called the bicep femoris shorthead, and its only function is to bend the knee. Since it doesn't cross the hip joint, it won't be trained at all during any RDL movement or hip hinge in general. The best exercise to train your hamstrings are the seated leg curls while leaning forward. If you only do one exercise for hamstrings, this is what I recommend. It gives 1.5 times more growth than lying hamstring curls. At least that were the findings in this study. But personally, I prefer another exercise which we'll get into later. While I'm doing my RDLs, I superset a toe press. A calf raise with a straight knee is infinitely better than any calf raise variation with a bent knee. In fact, I don't do seated calf raises at all. Your calf is made of 2 muscles, the soleus and the gastrocnemius. The soleus is deep in your calf and almost impossible to see. The seated calf raise trains 90 to 100% of your soleus, but it only trains 1 to 2% of your gastrocnemius. The gastroc is the only thing you can see. It's horrible for hypertrophy. Calves aren't purely genetic like people say. Yes, it's a factor, but push sets of standing calf raises or toe presses hard at least 2 times a week and use partial range of motion in the stretched position. Studies show that full range of motion on calves are overall worse for muscle growth. Do not go above 90 degrees. After I'm done with my hamstrings and calf superset, I finish off with some more quads and hanging leg raises. My second and final exercise is the reverse Nordic curl. These are insane and will blow up all 4 heads of your quads. If you aren't strong enough to do them, use a resistance band to help you. However, this is a weird exercise that isn't too stable, so if your main goal is purely hypertrophy, then I'd recommend leg extensions with the seat all the way back. This is probably the best exercise for overall quad growth. I tend to choose more unstable exercises that emphasize a deep stretch because of my martial arts. I do MMA 5 times a week, and these type of exercises really help with my grappling, particularly my wrestling and jiu-jitsu. After each set of reverse Nordics, I throw in some hanging leg raises for abs, and I'm done after 2 sets. That's my first leg day of the week. My next leg day is 4 days later, and it's even shorter. And that's because afterwards I hit the boxing gym and we do some pretty intense training after the weights. I warm up the same, and then I go into my first movement, which are Bulgarian split squats. Great for the glutes and the quads, however, they are incredibly grueling. If they're too much, you can do walking dumbbell lunges. Make sure to use lifting straps if you're failing due to your forearms not being able to carry the weight. You want to take your legs to failure, not your arms. I superset my Bulgarian split squats with my second hamstring movement of the week, being Nordic curls. These are the best exercise for injury prevention, specifically in ACL tears. They train the entire hamstring due to the knee flexion. However, these are incredibly hard. So if you can't do them or you just don't want to do them, stick to seated hamstring curls while leaning forward. After my Bulgarian split squats and Nordic curls, I superset toe press with hip adduction. I know, I'm crazy. I train calves a lot, but that's what you need in order to have big calves. My calves are pretty high set, so if I don't train them frequently and hard, then they won't look that big. I only do 1 to 2 sets of the superset depending on how hard I'm going to go at the boxing gym that day. Which is honestly enough. Study shows that 60% of your gains made in a session are from your first hard set. That means you can go to the gym for 30 minutes, do 4 or 5 exercises, and only 1 set to failure, and you're getting 60% of the benefits. That's crazy. That's fantastic news for people who don't think they have time to work out. The hip adduction trains your adductors, which are often overlooked. They should be sufficiently trained by the squat, but if you want a little more growth, then throw a few sets of these in your week. And honestly, that's all I do to get big legs. You really don't need anything more. If you want to be insane, you can go in, do 1 set of squats, 1 set of everything I said if you really hate training legs. Consistency will win overall. If you like the information I provided and you want a personalized program, hit me up in the description. I'm a certified personal trainer. Let me help you on your muscle building and fat loss goals. But if you don't want to give me money, then please check out another video. It really helps. That's all for now. This is Ruben signing out. Bye-bye.
Revoke your humanity.
You're inhuman!